Good evening. It's Wednesday, January 22nd, and this is a committee meeting of the Policy Committee. First up on the agenda is Policy 5450.1, Notification of Sex Offenders and Access to School Property Policy Committee. We have discussion.
Okay, this is a revision of the last version of the policy. In addition to notification of sex offenders, it also includes information about access to school property. In the third paragraph was added because I thought that there should be some requirement to report if you see a sex offender on campus to somebody, including law enforcement, and law enforcement reports to us. So I thought that was something that needed to be added. Regarding access to property, I changed the words so that they weren't quite as zero tolerance, because I'm not sure that that would hold muster with the, legally. So I addressed the same issues that we addressed in the last version and said that that a child must receive an education until age 21, or they get a high school diploma, whichever occurs sooner. And then if there is a parent or guardian who is a registered sex offender, they will be offered remote Google sessions for all parent-teacher conferences unless otherwise required. And they will be offered live streaming for activities. And if a child is a sex offender who is a student, they'll be offered remote learning to fulfill the requirements unless required by law, and required by law would be probably a court order, and I've seen them. I also added about paroled sex offenders are entitled to vote in person, but we can ask that they vote by early mail ballot, but we can't require it. They are allowed to vote, but there's only a 2-hour period when they are permitted to come to the polling place to vote between 7 and 9, because there wouldn't be any children there at that time. I also have that language in another policy, and then it's just said also, unless required by law, registered sex offenders will not be allowed on school grounds. I thought that was the best way to handle that. And that's it. And it says the superintendent will establish regulations if necessary for implementing the policy. I don't even know that we need that, actually.
Okay.
Do we want I don't know that we need it under the circumstances.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Would this policy impede business? So if we were to adopt this policy at the next meeting, would it impede regular business? Business would be as usual, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Do you want the last paragraph out about the superintendent establishing regulations?
I would like to keep it.
Okay, because there aren't any regulations now.
Can I also say that you had referenced the voting policy, just for the record, the policy is 2120.2.
Yes, similar language as in here. It's the last sentence.
Okay. So, do
Mike.
we want to...
You just have to tell me if you want to push this forward, if you guys are in favor of putting it forward to the board for a second reading and adoption on the 28th.
Yes.
Okay.
That's the second thing. Yes.
And you can amend policies even after a second reading, so.
Okay.
Policies are living documents. They're meant to be changed as needed.
Okay. Next up on the agenda, 1.02, is 2105, School Board Access to Information and Reports. Let's look at that. Okay, access. Okay. Go ahead.
So at the last meeting, we had some discussion on the floor about this. I want to read the paragraph again. In this policy, we want to add, upon a violation of the student code of conduct that rises to the level of requiring an investigation and/or superintendent's hearing, the superintendent shall report the incident and allegation to the Board of Education within 24 hours, with students' names redacted. The board members shall be appraised of all such allegations to enable them to expeditiously address policy which would prevent such incidents. I want to get clarification. We are not asking in this policy for it to be given to the public. It is for the board, correct? Thank you.
Okay.
The idea is to make sure that the board knows what's going on rather than hearing it in the community.
Exactly.
Is that an overreach of our seat?
No, I don't think that's an overreach.
Okay. Okay. Matthew?
I believe at the meeting in December, when this went to the board, one of the trustees had suggested a revision of, instead of it saying within 24 hours, it would say as soon as practicable. I think that was Mr. Stewart's suggestion.
You can say that.
Because there was questions like if it's on a Friday, so there were some questions of.
Okay.
So he had suggested, could we put as soon as practicable? And that was the
Okay.
discussion that happened at the board meeting.
Do you want it as soon as practicable, but no later than?
Yeah.
That works. I would be able with that. And then the time frame be 48 or 72 hours?
Or 2 school days, or 1 school day,
The point is,
but.
We don't wanna go
They might
home
have
and-
to have a weekend also.
but we don't want to go home and see it on the news before we've been informed. So however we can manage that time frame would be very acceptable to me.
So do you want to make it no later than 48 hours?
That sounds reasonable.
Because I don't, as soon as practicable is is a subjective statement. But that's not unreasonable, okay.
So point of order, so you just gotta tell me, so I'm gonna make it to within 48 hours, and then you guys are okay with sending this to the board for a second reading and
As soon as
adoption?
practicable, but no later than 48 hours.
Sounds good.
That just sets a parameter.
Ready to go forward? Next up is Policy 2160, School District Officer and Employee Code of Conduct.
So on this policy, again, there is a statement in here. It's under Section 8, Number 2. It's on consultants. No board member may serve as a consultant or employee for the district for at least, it currently says 1 year. We are requesting 3 years after vacating office.
And that was the only change.
Yes.
I would like to move that forward.
I would just like to ask again the attorney, in this scenario, is this an overreach?
It's a long time. I've never seen a period of time like that. And I'm not sure what would happen if it was, brought for an appeal of any kind.
Would you agree that our district is unlike many?
Oh, you are unique.
Yes.
That's what you mean.
So that.
But every district is unique.
Right. So, so,
You are very unique, yes.
okay. Well, I'm okay with this. I would like to move it forward. How about you? Okay. Next is Policy 0160, Meeting Bylaws. Get to that. 0160. Okay. You want to?
So, this is also part of something that NISBA recommended. So, I believe the recommendation was to actually strike the 0166
Altogether?
altogether.
And put it
would be
under meetings?
Correct. So I actually moved to strike this
Okay, and then we're going to go with the NISBA recommendations
we'll talk about that.
when we talk about that. Okay, so
Yeah, there's a policy called, I think it's 2342, Agenda Preparation and Dissemination.
Correct,
And that was part of the package that you paid for then.
Yes.
correct,
Right, 0166, the bylaws and that other policy are basically the same.
correct.
okay. Okay, so this one here
You
is,
don't need two pieces of the same.
But we are able to, when we go to that policy, that 2342, if we wanted to add that verbiage, we can.
Absolutely.
But we just have to make sure, one of them has to stay on the book, so we have to make sure we adopt a new one before we delete the old one.
oh, okay,
So
okay. so-
2342, Agenda Dissemination would have to be approved by the board before you get rid of 06, you
Got
follow.
it, yeah. Okay, so strike after,
So depending on how the policy review goes with the NISBA 2000s on agenda item 7, like, I got it. We'll put forward to the board this deletion of bylaws once you guys approve the 2342 agenda dissemination.
okay, great. Okay, so next on the agenda is policy 2320, special meetings. And that was basically
You wanted to add the term.
adding the definition as defined, meaning, saying that these meetings are not regularly scheduled. They usually are held to conduct business that cannot wait until the next regularly scheduled meeting. They are called when there's a specific need beyond the regular schedule. They're not part of the routine. For example, if an urgent matter arises that cannot wait until the next regular meeting, a public body might call a special meeting to address a specific issue or decision. In order to avoid a possible violation of open meetings law, care must be taken that special board meetings do not usurp the place of a regularly scheduled board meeting for the consideration of regular district business. If the matter is not urgent and could be reasonably addressed during a regular meeting, it must wait until the regular meeting to ensure full transparency and public participation. And that is what we would like to add to this policy.
I would like to explain that too. So when I looked at this policy, essentially, if there was a special meeting to be called, currently it could be anything that we want on that agenda. So anything could be added. There's no specifics to what the subject is. So I believe the definition, it would avoid regular business being on a special meeting agenda.
Right. So,
Do you have any comment to that?
My comment is there are times when, even if it's not urgent, it might be a good idea to add something other than the one item, and here you're limiting yourself. I mean, if there's a good reason for doing it, I would think that you might say yes.
oh, of course.
Right, I think that it's,
You want to keep
we don't want
that,
20 items on the agenda.
I understand, but it might be more than one item.
Correct.
So I think that I just don't want you to tie your hands if
Okay,
something
so-
really needs to be done.
Okay. So will we have to add anything else into that?
To the next regular meeting, specific need beyond, okay, that's fine. And now, for example, if an urgent matter that cannot wait until the next public body might call a special meeting to address. Or it might be to address a specific issue or decision, or it could be more than one. For example, things happen quickly, so you might have several urgent matters that need to be attended to. Maybe you called it for a specific purpose, and then another important reason, occurs where you didn't expect it. Do you really want to not be able to address it at that? Rather, why would you want to call a second special meeting?
Right. So then maybe we pause on this? Oh.
How about you just add an S to B, specifics, issues, or decisions? So then you're not limiting yourself to one specific, so
About one or more specific issues.
you can just leave it the way it is, just add plural, so you can talk about whatever you want, but you're not limited to just one item, as long as it's special meeting parameters.
or if the matter, and put an S in the D of the matter or matters.
Right, okay.
How's that? And that way, at least you have a little wiggle room if you need to address it. I just don't, I just want you to be able to do the district's business.
Okay.
Yeah, I wrote down, send to the board for the second reading and adoption with the added plurals that Margot's gonna send to me.
Okay, the next item up is policy 6150, budget. Policy 6150, budget transfers. And this is, we're basically just changing the amount that can be transferred without board approval from $200,000 to $50,000. Any discussion? Victoria?
One of our primary functions is fiduciary responsibility. A lot of things happen that could be up to $200,000 that I believe us as a board need to focus in on. So I believe $50,000 is a fair number. Can you?
Every district is different, and it's really your decision how much you want, leeway you want to give the individuals making these transfers.
Do you know of any district that allows $200,000?
I do.
Same size?
A little smaller, but also a small city.
I think that this is a reasonable request, and it will strengthen internal controls. So I prefer to err on the side of caution if,
And you can always increase it if you think that it's,
okay.
if you learn that it's not working.
If it's too restrictive or, okay. Okay, so
That's why I said the policy is a living document.
okay. I'm gonna write that down. Okay. Okay, so are we moving this one forward?
So is it moving forward to the 28th as the first read?
No, I would like it to,
This was not one that we discussed last time, so. Is it going as a first read?
Yeah.
Or is it going as a first read and adoption?
first read and adoption.
Okay, first read and adoption then.
Got it.
Okay. The next group of policies are all,
Point of order, ma'am.
oh,
Purchase.
Could we just knock out 8 and 9? Because I don't know how long it's gonna take us to do all the policy reviews,
oh, okay.
if you don't mind. And then-
Okay, all right, we can, okay, so
Thank you so
we're
much.
gonna break protocol and go to 2120.2, voting procedures. Okay, let's see.
And this was a recommendation, correct? Here.
Voting
Oh, I
policy.
know, there are a lot of changes to that policy.
This
Because
one,
it has to be 2120.2 because it needed to be updated.
okay.
And this is to follow the law, correct?
Yes, this is early mail ballots were first introduced at last year's annual meeting. They were effective in February of 2024, so your policies haven't been updated. I added early mail ballots. There was nothing about military ballots in there, so I added military ballots. And then at the end, I added the verbiage about the paroled sex offenders, so.
Can I read that blurb?
Yes, and I also added this so that it would make sense. Otherwise, without that there, it looked like it was part of the previous paragraph.
Got it. So the paroled sex offenders statement says, paroled sex offenders are encouraged to vote by early mail ballot upon submission of a ballot application between 30 and 7 days prior to the election/vote. As set forth above, in the event that a paroled sex offender wishes to vote in person, they may only vote at their polling place between the hours of 7 p.m. and 9 p.m. I'm good with that. I'll first and adopt.
And if you have any other questions about the different kinds of ballots and the timelines, it's all statutory. It's not like you can make changes.
Time is not of the essence, but It's up to you. We could do a first read and adopt, or just a first read. It's up to you. There's no election coming up.
Right.
So I just think because we are discussing that sex offender policy that touches to this, we should coincide with it.
Well, you can have a first reading of this and you,
Okay, got it?
No, so, so are we doing the first read and adopt,
do a first read.
or just a first read? Just a first read? Perfect, got it.
and the language is in the other policy as well.
Oops. Okay. Okay, so now, policy 6700 is purchasing. This is just a policy that requires annual review.
Yes,
So, and we just want to get that under our belt, and, oh boy.
I made some non-substantive changes to it. They're just,
Yeah, there's a couple shalls turned into wills turned into shalls.
and an or was missing, that's all.
Okay, so it's just basically grammatical
Yes,
changes?
yes.
Okay.
Also, just, this is for Title I, correct? What is the title?
No, this is purchasing.
Right, but it's for, we have to review it every year.
We have to review it every year because the law says we. Same thing with investments.
We have a few of them, right?
Yes.
Thank you. I'm okay with the first and adopt on this one.
Okay, and first and adopt.
It's not substantive. And that way you can have it, you know, it will say revised and the date, and you'll know a year from now you have to read it, review it again. That's all.
Okay. Next, now we'll go back to where we were, which is the NISBA 2000 policy review, and these are not all the policies they've reviewed, but a good handful of them.
Yes.
Where is it? Oh. Okay, so the first up is policy 2000. This is a canned?
It's at the 000s in each section has one of their goals policies, which it's not a required policy, but you can certainly have it as long as you like what's written. So that's really up to you whether or not you want it. Some districts don't like the 000s, and others do. So it's really up to you.
Yeah, it's fine. I have no objection to it, but,
That's fine,
so we'll just hang on to that.
fine.
Okay. So we put it up,
We just leave it.
okay.
Yeah, this would go to, if you guys are okay with it, 2000 as is written by NISBA would go to the board for first read.
Right.
Okay. Okay. Next up is policy 2100, school board legal status. And I didn't, all I saw in here were grammatical changes.
There's also something, can I read it? If you go down, there's bold print a little bit.
Not in that one.
Yeah, no, that's further
It's school
down.
board elections. This is
You're right.
school board legal status.
Okay, so are we okay with this one? Okay,
This
so
is pretty much your current policy with minor
will
changes.
this be first read and,
First read and adopt on the, no.
no, first read.
I would suggest all these NISBA policies, you just do a first read, because nobody's seen any of these yet.
Right,
So I would
okay.
just suggest for all the policies that we're doing right now, would just be a first read.
Excellent. Okay.
Okay.
Next up is policy 2120. Okay. Okay, this is an important one. We have some grammatical changes, but also there's a bold paragraph added that says electioneering during the hours of any vote is prohibited within the polling place or within 100 radial feet of any such polling place. Electioneering includes the display or distribution of any banner, poster, placard, button, or flyer on behalf of or in opposition to any candidate or issue to be voted upon. I think that's important to add into that. Victoria?
Is there anything in there that stops the candidate from being at the polling place?
No, the candidate can be at the polling place as long as they're not electioneering. If they're talking to people about what's going on, about who to vote for, it's a slippery slope. You'll have somebody appealing it, but you can be there to observe, but not to electioneer.
Thank you.
Okay, so that's up for a first read. Okay. All right, next is policy 2121, board member qualifications. Okay. Must be and must have. Okay, Victoria, you wanted some clarification?
I just need clarification because currently we have 2 Bouchers and 2 Bellows on the board.
Yes,
Number 5 is red.
yes.
So I just want to confirm that we can be a part of the same family, just not in the same household.
I actually litigated that commissioner's decision, not last year, but the year before, for another school district,
Okay,
where there was a board member and their cousin wanted to run for the board. Their cousin had a separate family, lived in separate houses, but, they are relatives. And several members of the community appealed to the commissioner, and the commissioner said, as long as you're not within the same household.
Okay,
so this verbiage says
So I
that.
wanted to just make that clear.
Thank you.
okay. Then I'm good to move this forward. And you, yes, okay. Next up is policy 2140. Now, this is another one where we're separating some things out. Margot?
I actually just moved a paragraph
Oh.
of that line.
Okay.
That's why it's not red, that's why it's green, because I took it from the third paragraph and I moved it. Just got erased from here. I just moved it up there.
Oh. And that's it? So there were basically no change?
So that's the only thing that I
And-
did, and a will, or a couple of wills, just a minor.
Okay,
So this is a current policy right now.
Yes,
Thank you.
a lot of these are current policies.
okay. So we can move that forward for first read. If it's a current policy, why would it be going, and there's essentially no major changes, why would it be going for a first read without adopting it?
Well, they all are.
Well, normally, like, the clerk has if it's just a couple very minor grammatical changes or a number change, the clerk is authorized to just make that change.
Okay.
What I will say, as being the clerk for as long as I've been sitting here in this seat, it gets confusing when we do that. It's stuff gets out of hand very fast. Not out of hand, but it's hard to keep track of what happened when.
Okay.
So I just always, unless it's very minor, like I just typoed something, I just bring it back to the board just so everybody's on the same page.
At the same
And then it keeps me, so I know when I reviewed it, there's an adopt date on it.
Okay.
It's easier to keep track if we do it that way, that's all.
Okay. Moving on. Policy 2150, filling board vacancies.
Can I say something?
Certainly.
I changed some of the language here because small city school districts are different than other school districts in that if there is a vacancy on the board, it specifically says that a majority vote of the remaining board members can choose somebody to be appointed to a vacant seat. In all other situations, it's a quorum of the board, of the entirety of the board. That's an exception to the quorum,
Oh, okay,
and it's only for small city school districts. So I wanted it to be accurate.
okay, that's,
So in layman's terms, Margot, there's 9 people on the board, and out of those 9 people, 6 people resign, which leaves you 3 active board members.
Yes.
The way you're saying the small city school districts, a quorum would normally be 5, but since there's only 3 active members left, but those 3 people, 2 out of those 3, 2 would be a majority, so 2 people could then start appointing people to the board.
Yes, that's correct.
Got it.
And it actually happened.
Next up is policy 2175. Okay.
No, we have to do 21.6. Oh, no, you did it, you're right. Come on.
This is defense and indemnification.
That's an important policy.
So Margot, can you just explain what's changed on here?
It's a description of what has to be done when you are served with litigation papers, whether you're an employee or a board member or an officer. It basically says that the employee must give written notice with a copy of the claim or litigation papers attached to the notice within 5 days after service of process upon them. And that's really to protect the individual being sued, so that when they ask for defense and indemnification, they'll make sure that they do attach the litigation papers to it.
Okay.
And that's only under one provision, and the other provision, it's within 10 days.
Okay. Okay, okay, so. All right. Next up is policy 2210, annual organizational meeting. And
I changed the name because technically that is the correct name of the meeting. It's the annual organizational meeting.
okay. And also was added, unless the board passes, the board will hold its annual organizational meeting during the first week in July, unless the board passes a resolution to hold the meeting during a date within the first 15 days in July. Okay.
Would that be the practice of the previous board? Yes, right? That would have to come from the previous board.
Excuse me?
So,
Yes, the board, prior to a board being seated in July, the board would decide, the current board, whatever that current board is, would decide the date of the annual organizational meeting.
thank you.
Usually taking into consideration where July 4th fits in.
Okay. Okay, so I'm good with that. And you're good with that? Okay. Wait a minute. This was added. That wasn't the only addition, was it, Margot?
No, there are a few different things.
Okay.
I just like to sometimes tighten, I like to tighten up language sometimes, so you'll see I might change it a little. I added an individual who can approve resolution session agreements. That's important for special education, so that there is somebody who has the authority, although the board can then choose within 3 business days not to accept that. And I took out the last paragraph because you're not going to necessarily review the policies that need to be reviewed on an annual basis that day.
Oh, okay, okay,
It's not required.
okay. And they were the only changes, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So, next up is policy 2220, board officers. Okay, I just see grammatical changes on that. Is there anything major in there?
So it looks like it was stricken to appoint committees with the advice of fellow board members.
Yes.
Is that a recommendation?
I don't know who the blue,
I changed that because
that's not your practice?
there's another policy, and that policy states that the board, as a quorum of the board, will appoint the committee.
Right.
So it would
So
be inconsistent.
this conflicted with that other policy, so that's why that got stricken. If you're gonna put that back in, then you would have to go back and
Yeah.
fix that other policy, so that, I
Right.
wanted to make sure they made the sense.
Okay. Yes, that was in another policy. Okay,
You have policies on committees.
okay. So we're okay to move that?
You're okay, yeah?
Yeah, you're okay. Okay, next up is policy 2230, appointed board officials.
That's just
Grammatical?
pretty much, yes.
Okay.
It's nothing substantive.
Okay,
Here's board committee.
so I'm okay to move that forward, and Victoria also. Okay. Next up is policy 2250. And it's, no changes are necessary. It's board committees. Okay, the board may. Board committees.
I believe we have to have some verbiage in here that decides who starts that process.
I would like to see something added in here that the committee determines the day and time of the committee meeting. Committee members.
I would also like something added in here that administration should be at these meetings,
Should be,
at the committee meetings. I would also like it to say committee members will be appointed by a quorum vote of the members of the board. There needs to be someone that starts that process. So in my opinion, it would be the board president, but I don't know.
yeah, I would think the board president would ask who wants to, if there's any volunteers, yeah. And then bring it forward for a vote. Just hold up on it.
Yeah.
What, you tell me. I'm not really sure.
So I want to be a little more clear. When it comes to the administration being at the meetings, I believe the committee chair should be able to say, for example, if it's exceptional learners, that the assistant superintendent of exceptional learners are at the, they pick who they want there.
So you want the committee chair to reach out to the appropriate administrator and ask them to attend meetings? And it could be all meetings or just specific meetings?
Just specific, ones that.
I mean, it would be to their content, the content area of the
Right.
administrator and the committee. Okay.
Will that be ready for a first read? Will that be ready for a first read for the regular meeting, or?
I don't see why not. I can probably get it to Matthew on Friday.
Okay. So, okay, first read.
Send it to the two of you.
Next policy is policy 2260, Citizens Advisory Committees. And this is unchanged, so, just a couple grammatical changes. No, I'm okay with moving that forward. Okay, next up is policy 2270, school attorney. Okay,
I'm a believer in less is more, so this is what I do generally when I get these policies. It's up to you if you want to keep the long list of things that an attorney, school attorney does. But as you know, they do even more.
oh, yeah. Okay. So most of that was all taken out, okay.
In here, there's something that states that it's helpful for the board to set forth the titles of those persons authorized to contact the school attorney. Do you recommend that we do that? It is in the RFP?
That's in the retainer that you have.
Okay.
It talks about who can contact now.
Is it, I don't know that. I mean, it might be in there that I don't know about, but it can be in the retainer, it can be, in your policies.
I think they're gonna take your call even if you call them anyway. But it's in the retainer. I think it's the board president.
Okay.
I think there's something in there about that.
It's not elected now.
Yeah, first read on the 28th if the committee is okay.
Next policy up is policy 2310, regular meetings. Okay. Okay, so, okay, go ahead.
I have a question. This paragraph, where it says, in addition to the members of the board, the following individuals will regularly attend the business meetings of the board. That means they're required to be at the meetings, correct? Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Can you scope in on who can excuse them?
Board president could be the superintendent who excuses a staff, one of the central office administrators. I think that really that's it. Could be the board vice president in the president's absence.
Okay.
Who's in the back room is always determined by the board.
So we have that say.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Okay, so are you good to move this forward? Okay.
Although in a small city school district, the board, like, the superintendent is an ex officio member of the board.
Right.
So unless you cannot exclude the superintendent of schools. So
Right.
It'd be the 9 members plus the suit. And
Okay.
anybody else would be up to the board.
Okay. Okay. And policy 2325, we are striking? Is that? That's video conferencing?
No, I added video conferencing language to the meetings policy. This is video conferencing under extraordinary circumstances, which you can't have unless you have a public hearing, you develop a set of procedures, and then you have the board adopt it. So at this point, you do not have it, and most school districts have chosen not to do this.
Okay.
I have a question, but we did that.
No, you did video conferencing. Video conferencing where the address of the board member, where the board member will be located, is in the notice of the meeting, and the public's invited to attend. And in that case, the individual who's attending by video conference forms part of the quorum.
Okay.
If somebody attends by video conferencing under extraordinary circumstances where their address is not in the notice and the public is not invited to attend, they do not make part of the quorum.
Thank you. It's important.
So nothing's happening with that policy. That was just reviewed by NISBA,
Just
Okay.
leave it out.
and it's just not going any forward.
Okay. Next up is Policy 2330, executive session. Okay. Okay.
Okay with.
Okay, so it just looks like language was added. The motion to go into executive session must be detailed enough to allow the public to understand the topic the board will be discussing without disclosing specifics. Discussion in executive session will be limited to the topic identified in the motion.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, and then can we put something in this to determine who enters executive session according to open meetings law?
The board decides. It is the board's decision who enters executive session.
Okay.
Do we have to say that before we go into executive session, or that's just?
You don't have to say it, you just have to invite you either invite somebody to attend executive session, or you can say, I don't want so-and-so, the board can say they don't want. They would probably, the way it's usually done is that they would ask the superintendent to make sure that so-and-so and so-and-so are there.
Okay.
It might be an attorney who's involved with litigation, it might be your insurance counsel it might be another consultant on a specific issue, it might be all of the central office administrators, or just certain ones of them.
Okay, then I'm,
But the board makes that call.
Yes.
Thank you.
okay, I'm okay with this.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we can move this forward. Next up is policy 2340, notice of meetings. Okay, it looks like you added, a sentence was added. For all regular and special meetings of the Board of Education, the district clerk will give adequate notice to all members and to the community, including posting notice of the time and place of meetings on the district website. That was added? I thought that's what you were.
That is what he does,
Oh,
whether it's in the policy or not.
oh, okay.
And
It's just
and
no,
it goes out to all, obviously the notification I send out to the board, but it goes to all the buildings in the district too. The public library, all the school buildings. So if you go into one of the school buildings, you'll see it on like the bulletin board. For all schools in the district, they get the same notice that I send out to the board.
okay.
And it's on the website, and anybody can look at it and see what's on the agenda, including the resolutions, policies.
Okay. And it's also noted that if video conferencing is used to conduct a meeting where remote locations are open to the public notice for the meeting will indicate that video conferencing will be used. Specify the location or locations for the meeting and state that the public may attend at any of the locations.
Correct.
Okay. And if the meeting will be streamed live over the internet, notice will indicate the internet address of the website streaming the meeting. Great, okay.
We currently do that.
Yeah, okay. All right, so I'm good to move this forward. And Victoria, okay.
And once again, I deleted the paragraph on video conferencing under extraordinary circumstances because you don't have it.
Okay, okay. Next up is policy 2342, agenda preparation and dissemination. This one.
Now, this is the policy we were talking about earlier that replaces the bylaw.
Okay. Okay, so we wanted to, or we added in that the vice president, go ahead.
So there's a couple things in here that I like. I think when we talk about under here, it says the board has complete discretion in identifying persons who may suggest items of business. I believe we all should have input as the board members, but I like here where it says superintendent at least insert number of days prior to a regular meeting, I believe that should be 7 days.
Suggest items of business must submit.
So it says person suggesting items of business must submit the item to it should say board president, not superintendent. At least 7 days prior to the regular meeting.
Should be the board president and superintendent,
Yeah,
since they're supposed to be creating
collaborative.
the agenda?
That's
Yes.
fine. I just don't want it to say or, I want it to say and,
I have it in.
okay? And then when it comes to prior to a special meeting,
How many days?
it depends on how many days we have, right?
Why would you, well, I guess this is,
So the agenda has to go out 24 hours prior to the special meeting, so it should,
unless you're having an
Emergency.
emergency.
No
rule for
less
the-
than 24 hours.
There
notice.
doesn't even need to be an agenda.
Right.
The only thing I need to do is send out a notification of meeting.
okay,
You guys can walk into the room with no agenda. There's no rule on an agenda. You guys can just come into the meeting room and just start voting on whatever you want. The only rule is you have to be notified the public that you're having a meeting. But there's no rule about an agenda. That's just I don't know where that came from, but I know I've heard that a bunch of times. So I just want to make sure I'm clear on that. Boards can meet with not an agenda, and doesn't have to be 24 hours. But if you're gonna vote on stuff, you should, as the law says, open meetings as soon as practical. So if you did start voting on,
Within 24 hours, or if practicable.
if there was stuff that got voted on that wasn't on the agenda, then normally I would have hard copies here. In case somebody asked, like, hey, what's the board voting on? There would be a copy here, so that everybody would be on the same.
And that could happen when you're discussing something in executive session and a resolution is walked onto the agenda. There would not have been 24 hours notice, because you could not have 24 hours notice if it had to be discussed in an executive session.
Right.
so again, I'm gonna ask this blatantly. If we were to put that number of days 7, is this saying that no one can add anything after that time period? Because that's not attainable here.
It says must submit the item, so that's what it says. Do you not want that to be a hard and fast rule? Because you know that it's
I would
going.
strongly suggest not having that.
Right.
I was just gonna say, you can't.
You've been asking, Ms. Boucher, hey, would this disrupt district business? If you did that, yes.
Okay,
I mean, I can't say every day,
right.
Yeah.
but this would really,
Yeah.
this would really restrict things and would make it difficult. And to be honest with you, that just means you guys are gonna have to come in more times for another meeting.
Right.
So like, it's not just because, we just don't have the information. And if this policy is written so strictly, we can't add it, you guys are already coming on Monday for a special meeting, you know what, you're gonna have to come on Tuesday too, because, and you're not gonna wanna do that.
No.
Okay,
So then, I would then just like added that it must be submitted to the superintendent and the board president
Yes.
with no
Without
number.
no number of
Right.
days.
Right,
And we're gonna that's the sentence, it's not gonna be the end either.
correct.
So that's the sentence.
So for my own clarification, so what does it exactly mean? Like, so person suggesting items of business must submit them to the soup and the board president prior to the regular meeting.
So it
I
should,
mean, I'm reading this like, does that mean like an agenda setting? 'Cause I
so
don't know, like, I don't wanna get caught, like, I don't know, I don't want it to be a gray area.
this should say board members suggesting items of business. Because I'm not gonna want,
Right, you don't want the staff members shouldn't be
Correct.
submitting stuff to the
no,
board.
correct,
The staff members working here should submit their items to the superintendent.
correct.
Should, not must.
Right, they should, right.
Yeah.
But if a board member wants to suggest something, obviously should, right.
come to the press.
But it
Correct,
shouldn't say persons, to me, that seems like everybody.
right. So that's, it should say board members.
And should it be prior to agenda setting if possible?
Oh, definitely, and there should, that's where there should be a limit, I mean,
So
Unless
that-
unless there is an emergency or, or it's
Yeah.
important that something be added.
So that's where I wanted to talk about what we had in 0166. That every effort paragraph. It's every effort shall be made to collaborate with both the president and superintendent with regard to their schedules.
Did you want to, did you want to add the
Yes.
vice president and deputy superintendent also? Okay, so I'm going to say add from 0166 here and the new paragraph.
I don't think we need that last sentence, only because if this gets adopted,
Okay,
it would be between 4 people to make it work.
I'm good with whatever.
okay. I will add that.
Okay, thank you. And then there was something else, sorry, go ahead, Matthew. Yeah. In that 01, oh wait, no, I lied to you. Nope, I'm good. I did, because it's on here as 0166, and it's really 0167 and 6.1, which we aren't really are talking about today, right?
Unless, is there something in here that you wanted to have in
Yes.
your policies?
I wanted to add a letter H that states, the board president controls the meeting.
What's the board president or the chairperson,
Correct.
if the board president is not there?
Point of order, wait, I'm kind of confused. So H, you're talking 0166,
7,
0167, so that's part of the
bylaws.
bylaws.
So I didn't know if we,
This, I would just make a suggestion. This is gonna be a hot topic, this one, and so, because it's just gonna be. This agenda dissemination. It's hard when we're doing policy reviews and we're doing it on the fly like this, which is fine, I don't really have a problem with that, but it's out of the ordinary.
okay,
I would suggest, nothing's gonna happen if we don't do it at the next board meeting. 2342, you should let the attorney massage it. Get if you guys have any more suggestions for it, add that in. And then 2342, bring back to your next policy committee meeting with the revisions as is. So when you go into the board as a first reading, we're all on the same page and it's clean.
perfect,
You know what I mean? And then we can just get it adopted and we're moving on.
Next policy meeting.
perfect.
That would be my suggestion, but I'll do whatever you guys want.
Yep, that works.
And I would suggest that we might want to have, instead of having these bylaws, have a policy that says this rather than having to go back and forth.
Right, I would suggest 016, all the meeting bylaws, that whole page, and this policy be just one.
Correct. Okay, thank you.
Still on agendas. It says the agenda and supporting material will be distributed to board members in a certain number of days in advance of the board meeting. It's usually the Friday before.
That's our normal practice, yeah. For a Tuesday meeting, it goes out on Fridays.
So it's 4 days?
So this is, again, this is for it to come to the board members.
Correct.
So can that be 5 days before the board meeting, and then if you have to add it, you add it on a Friday?
I only caught half of that.
I'm suggesting that, well, I mean, I guess it would come down to practice of the district. I don't know if I'm allowed to ask this question, but you normally get those items on a Friday? Is that what you're telling me?
Yes.
No, I mean, I get those items, I send them to the board on Fridays, but there's items coming in,
Still.
right now. Yeah.
But it's more beneficial to say Friday.
That should give the board enough time to review.
Okay.
But then we get our information Friday night. And that's enough time, the weekend and Monday?
Right. And everything goes live on Monday, Matthew?
No, it goes, as soon as it goes to the board, that's live.
Okay.
So on Friday. And normally, I mean, it's usually about 4 o'clock. I mean, there's been a handful of times that it hasn't been, but I don't want to work from home either. So, believe me, I'm on those Fridays as the clerk, I'm going around to the whole department, this whole floor, knocking on the door. Hey, you got items. I don't have this contract yet, or you didn't send me this quote yet. So I'm practically walking around just banging on doors. Some of them, they're not here, so yeah, that would really, and then so I'm trying to get it all wrapped up, making sure it's blessed by, everybody's got their items, and then it goes out. And normally, if there's agenda setting meeting that happened on a Wednesday or Thursday, before I hit the button to send it to everybody on Friday, I'll call the board president and say, hey, we met on this date, and since we met, there's XYZ items that are added.
Okay.
Just so everybody's looped in.
Okay.
The board president gives me the okay, and then it goes live to the board and to the public on Friday. And normally, it's by the close of business on Friday, because otherwise then I have to leave, then go home, and then send it from home.
Okay. All right, so I'm good with that.
What about the optional sentence here, that copies of the agenda and supporting material to be discussed will also be available at the superintendent's office? I mean, it's on your website.
Yeah,
You do provide it though, don't you?
if somebody came and asked for a printed copy, I would, but yeah, I mean, but I don't have printed copies just sitting in the soup's office, no.
I don't think we need it.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, we don't need it.
If somebody came in and asked for it, you would give it to them.
Right, so it's not needed. Because that's saying that he has to do it, right? Okay.
Pa-
Can I say something? Why do we need the last sentence? Why can't we just have it that the district clerk will distribute the agenda and supporting materials, rather than having to say that the district clerk is responsible ensuring that the agenda is available to the public immediate? To basically put it in that paragraph instead of having more words for no reason.
Okay,
I'll figure out where to put it. Okay?
all right. Next up is policy 2350, board meeting procedures. And let's have some discretion.
That's where 0167 might go in.
Okay. I was good with this.
I would just like to point out that executive session's not on this list. So, in reality, when an agenda is written, we do not have to put executive session on it.
I've requested that in the past. We don't need that on there unless there's a call for it.
And you don't have to have this in policy, the order of what you're going to do. You have an agenda that has a specific order. It doesn't have to be stated in your policy unless you want it to be. And it may be subject to change, and even at a board meeting, somebody can say, can we move so-and-so, just like you did tonight at this meeting. You want to have a little flexibility.
Okay.
I would suggest not having this policy to give you flexibility. You don't want, there's a policy that says that you have to have this, you know what I mean? You guys do this already.
I agree.
So you don't need that gotcha at them. You don't need that at the mic. The policy is you guys aren't, for a policy that you don't really need. I mean, for the policies you need, of course, we have to follow the policies, but this is just busy work.
Maybe what we'll do is I'll take the 0167 and maybe make it a new 2350, since you will have a number there.
Okay. And then we'll bring that back
To
for
the
the
next
next
meeting.
meeting.
Yes. That's a good suggestion.
Yeah.
Next policy up, 2351, quorum. This has been kept as is, no changes.
Except I added about the appointment of a individual to fill a vacancy, and it's a majority of the remaining members.
Okay, and I like that.
Yeah,
Only in small city school districts.
Okay,
that's fine.
okay, and then we can move that for, Okay, next is policy 2352, rules of order. Basically states that we follow Robert's rules, but the new version, right?
Newly revised.
Newly revised.
But you don't have to follow everything, it's just a guide. And this is I have a real problem with saying that you must follow Robert's rules. First of all, it's the most confusing document. Second of all, there are things in there that are inconsistent with the education law. So if you follow it as is, you're going to be breaking the law.
Okay. So it's a
But this-
reference.
Who'd this come from, though? This came from NISBA. This was their
That's
suggestion?
correct. And there are districts that have this policy just as is, but I change it when I have the opportunity. I don't think that it should be something you have to follow. It's a guide.
Right.
Okay, and this is what that says, right?
Yes.
Okay. That's fine.
Okay. So we'll move that for first read. Okay. Next is policy 2360, minutes. It's been kept as is. I don't see,
She just again took out the video conferencing.
oh,
Extraordinary
Okay.
circumstances, yes.
okay. Okay. And that's it.
That was great.
Okay, Matthew?
Okay, let's recap. Notification that sex offender is gonna go to the board, for a first reading, or excuse me, second reading and adoption on the 28th. 2105, within 48 hours, send to the board for a second reading and adoption. 2160, school district officers, that was an increase to 3 years, for second reading and adoption on the 28th. 0160, the meeting bylaws, Margot's gonna, massage that with 2342 and come back to the policy committee. 2320, special meetings, send to the board for a second reading and adoption. We're adding the plurals, S's on those things, and Margot's gonna send those to me. 6150, budget transfers, the committee's in favor of adding 50,000, and that's gonna be a first reading and adoption on the 28th. Voting procedures, 2120, just a first reading. Purchasing, first reading and adoption, that was your annual review. 2000, board goals, first reading, these are all first readings. 2120, school board legal status, 2100, school board legal status, 2120, school board elections, 2121, board member qualification, 2140, board member removal from office, 2150, filling board vacancies. Now 2175, defense and indemnification, first read and adopt, just a first read. 2210, annual organizational meeting, just a first read. Board officers, 2220, first read and adopt on that one. Board officials, just a first, of 2320, that was a first read and adopt. The board committees, we're adding committees about the members picking, the committees talk about the administration, who can come and request to attend. Margot's gonna work on that and hopefully send it to me by Friday. That's a first reading on the 28th. Citizens Advisory Committee, first reading, 2270, first reading. School attorney, 2310, regular meetings, first reading. 2325, video conferencing, that's dead, that's not going anywhere. 2330, executive session, first read on the 28th. Notice of meetings, 2340, first read on the 28th. 2342, Margot's gonna massage that with the suggestions, adding the letter H, and that's gonna come back to the policy committee in February. 2350, the attorney's going to review along with 0167 and bring that back to the policy committee in February. 2351 is a quorum policy. That's a first read on the 28th, the rules of order. First read on the 28th, minutes, first read on the 28th. That's what I have, ma'am.
Was there any recommendations from the district for this meeting?
Not that I got, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
And
You're the second.
I'm second, so,
All in favor, say yes.
Yes.
yes. That was excellent.
You have those written down, right?
What's that?